Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols, and I'm here to bring you a little bit of a different type of Nicholsworth today. I was featured on Dwayne Green's channel, who does a lot of videos on textual criticism and different textual sources, and we had a little conversation about how my favorite textual source is actually the Textus Receptus, and I explained my reasons why and why ultimately I'm really not King James only. It seems for most people there's no gray area on this. If you are Textus Receptus, then you are King James. And if you are critical text, then you think that the Textus Receptus is inferior. I don't hold that position, and I explain that in this video. Check it out.
You kind of light, lightly prefer the TR edition. Is that a fair way to express that?
I would say yes. I prefer all the text to be in my Bible to the best of its ability. I lean toward the TR probably more from a traditional standpoint, because from the Reformation and ultimately pre-Reformation and beyond, the TR, Textus Receptus, has been the received text of the church. I'm under no preconceived idea that it's the best one. It is my preferred because my issue is not with the critical apparatus. My issue is not with the majority text. And my issue isn't really even with the Douay Rheims, which is one that hardly anyone talks about. When the Old Testament, when you get to the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Masoretic text and all that, none of that's really my issue. My issue is when one textual source or textual group tries to diminish the other one. This one's not as good as this one. And I just don't hold that viewpoint. All three of them are good. All three of them are useful. All three of them have their place, and they're a little bit different. So I prefer the TR because it gives me the most content within the body of the text. And then I can use the textual footnotes to decide for myself what belongs and doesn't belong. The Johannine Coma probably being the one exception for me that I do not believe is inspired.
Right, right. So what do you think about some of the other bigger passages like Mark 16, 9 through 20, or the story of the woman caught in adultery?
The evidence for the inclusion of Mark is very, very early.
Right.
While it's not in the Vaticanus or the, however you say, the Sinaiticus, the oldest and best manuscripts per se. And I'm not this big time critical text scholar. I'm just kind of the link that studies and has put in my homework. But the reason that I'm TR preferred is, number one, the translations that are available in the TR are the ones I like better. There's something about the New King James and the tradition it stands on, and the fact that it pays great honor to probably the greatest English translation ever done, that puts me toward that. Also, there are texts like the ending of Mark, the long ending of Mark. Of course, there's a couple of different long endings of Mark. I believe it's the NASB. They actually give us an extra verse at the end of the longer ending of Mark. And then there are some that take the short ending of Mark and then plug in that extra verse as the end. And then, of course, there's some that just end it at verse 8, and they were greatly afraid. I'm a strong proponent for the inclusion of Mark all the way to the end, simply because there's such early record of it and there's early quotes of it. But to me, this speaks more. We have manuscripts from the 1500s backing all the way down to the 300s, and even backing all the way down, if you include the Dead Sea Scrolls, to before Christ, obviously with the Old Testament. That's remarkable. I don't think you any other ancient text to have that claim, to where nothing major is affected. And that to me showed remarkable preservation. And not only that, the different locations that these texts were found in, and the different traditions that they've had to be filtered through. And we all read essentially the same book. I'm going to say this and just dodge the darts.
Okay.
I think they're all the Word of God. And I believe God used people to preserve his Word. And I also believe that in the 1500s, people didn't have an inferior Bible.
Right.
Really bugs me that with the critical apparatus, here's the thing that bugs me the most about it. Because, okay, I'll give you 3 reasons why I prefer the TR. Number one, the translations that are available in the TR are the ones I like better. We've talked about. Number 2, I prefer the stability of the TR because it's no longer being updated. And then if I could get a third, I trust the tradition of the TR. I don't think church tradition is the end all be all, but I don't think you just throw it out.
Right.
So the fact that it was preserved up until the 1500s and believed to be the Word of God up to that point, of course, we have a gap. And for 500 years or so, it was the text. So I'm not just going to throw that out. So I am TR preferred. But one of the reasons that I do not prefer the critical text has nothing to do with this verse missing and this textual variant. It has everything to do with the fact they are constantly updating it every time they find a new manuscript. And to me, that just feels very unstable, very shaky. And then we get to the point to where we get further and further removed from the original event, where it's in the hands of man. And not only do you have these updates that are based on, we found these manuscripts, but it's also based on, well, we don't believe that that is actually what that meant. For example, in the NRSV, the text clearly says husband of one wife. The NRSV says married only once. I believe that the text means he should only have one wife. I could see how someone could say married only once. Only been married one time. If you've been married more than once, if you've been divorced or remarried, you can't be a deacon. I can see some that would hold that position. Okay. But that's not what the text says.
Right.
You have totally interpreted that. So then what's to say 3 updates from now, we're not saying, married only once means that you can have a husband even if you're a man, or a wife even if you're a wife. Married only once, well, a homosexual can say, and I don't want to get you kicked off YouTube, you can edit this out if you want.
No, that's fine.
But, a homosexual relationship can say, look, we've only been married once. So it's not even about the NA28 or the NA29 or whatever. It's what we do with it with the English as well. So that's also why I don't like textual updates every 5 to 10 years. Just leave my New King James alone.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to Dwayne Green's YouTube channel. He does a lot of content of this nature, and he is a lot more well-versed than me in this topic. I am more of a layman when it comes to this. Yes, I study, and yes, I have access to the Greek and Hebrew, but I can't read it fluently. I study it using lexicons and dictionaries like most of you. I have read going on 20 translations up to this point in the English, so I do know my way around the English-speaking Bible, and for me, the New King James is definitely where it's at. God bless you. Keep calm. Jesus Son.